Struggling musician plays song for dying patient, later finds out it miraculously cured them. The thought circled in Ethan Reed's mind like a persistent melody as he trudged through the hospital's automatic doors, guitar case bumping against his leg with each reluctant step. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent years dreaming his music would change lives, just not like this. Not in sterile hallways that smelled of antiseptic and despair, playing for people who were simply passing time until they passed on. The December air followed him inside, clinging to his threadbare coat like unwelcome memories. 3 years ago, he'd been on the verge of something magnificent, a record deal, promises of tours, a chance to prove his father wrong about music being a dead-end dream. Now, at 32, he performed in hospital wards and nursing homes for barely enough to cover rent on his studio apartment. Ethan, right on time. Nurse Connie greeted him with her usual warmth, clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. Her smile never quite reached her eyes these days. They both knew what this job had become. His last resort, her act of charity. "Hey, Connie." He managed a tired smile. "Who am I cheering up today?" She hesitated, and something in her expression made him straighten. "Actually, we have a special request. Room 418. Connie's voice softened. Terminal. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors gave her weeks, maybe days. Ethan's chest tightened. He'd played for dying patients before, but something about Connie's tone suggested this was different. She specifically asked for music? His fingers tightened around the handle of his guitar case. Not exactly. Her brother requested it. Said she used to be a composer before she got sick. Music was her whole life. Connie touched his arm gently. "Just be yourself, okay? Sometimes that's all we can offer." The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt eternal, each floor number illuminated with a soft ding that echoed his heartbeat. 4th floor, oncology. The corridor stretched before him. Muted beige walls, fluorescent lights that made everyone look ill. The quiet beeping of machines measuring out lives in electronic pulses. Room 418. The door was partially open. Ethan paused, suddenly aware of his own breathing. These moments before meeting patients always unsettled him. What comfort could his mediocre talent possibly offer someone facing eternity? He knocked softly. "Come in." The voice was unexpectedly melodic, though weak. The woman in the bed looked both younger and older than he'd imagined. Perhaps early 40s, but illness had carved hollow spaces beneath her cheekbones, shadowed her eyes. Still, there was something in those eyes, a light that disease hadn't yet extinguished. Her dark hair, streaked with premature silver, was braided over one shoulder. "You must be the musician." She studied him with surprising intensity. "I'm Maya Chen." Ethan Reed. He hovered awkwardly in the doorway. "Your brother requested music?" A fleeting shadow crossed her face. "David thinks music will comfort me." "He means well." "And will it comfort you?" The question slipped out before he could filter it. Maya's laugh was soft but genuine, straight to the existential questions. "I like that." She gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Most people tiptoe around the dying like we're made of glass." Ethan sat, placing his guitar case across his knees. "Sorry, I didn't mean..." "Don't apologize for honesty. It's refreshing." She looked out the window at the gray December sky. "To answer your question, I don't know. Music was my life before. Now it's mostly painful. A reminder of what I'm losing." The confession hung between them, honest and raw. "Then why let your brother arrange this?" Ethan asked, genuinely curious. "Because he needs to feel he's doing something." Her fingers played with the edge of her blanket. "Everyone does. The doctors, the nurses, my family. They all need to feel they're fighting this thing, even when we all know how the story ends." Ethan nodded, understanding more than she might realize. "So what would you like me to play? Something soft? Classical? What do you normally play when you're not performing for the dying?" The question carried no self-pity, just genuine interest. "My own stuff, mostly. Nothing you'd know." "Perfect." She settled against her pillows. "Play me something that matters to you, not what you think should comfort a cancer patient." The request caught him off guard. Most patients wanted familiar songs, melodies that transported them to happier times. Maya wanted authenticity. Ethan removed his guitar from its case, a weathered Martin that had been with him through better days. His fingers found the strings, instinctively checking the tuning. The instrument felt suddenly heavy with responsibility. "This is called Unfinished," he said quietly. "I wrote it last year when everything fell apart." His fingers began to move across the strings, coaxing out the melody that had come to him during those darkest days after the record deal collapsed. The song had no lyrics. He'd never found words adequate to express what the music conveyed. It began softly, tentatively, like someone testing thin ice. Then it deepened, the melody carrying notes of longing, of grief, of acceptance. As he played, Ethan allowed himself to look at Maya. Her eyes were closed, but he could tell she wasn't sleeping. Her expression shifted with the music. Pain, recognition, something like peace. A single tear traced a path down her temple, disappearing into her hair. When the final notes faded, neither spoke. The room felt different somehow, as if the music had altered its dimensions. "That's not finished," Maya said finally, opening her eyes. Hence the title. Ethan attempted a smile. "No, I mean it's genuinely unfinished. The melody is searching for resolution. It comes close, but then retreats." Her voice had strengthened. "You're afraid to complete it." The observation struck with unsettling accuracy. "I'm not afraid. I just haven't found the right ending." "Same thing." She studied him with those perceptive eyes. "What are you afraid of finding at the end of that melody, Ethan Reed?" The question penetrated deeper than he was prepared for. Before he could formulate a response, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but it's time for Miss Chen's medication." Maya sighed. "Our musical therapy session is cut short." Ethan began packing up his guitar, oddly reluctant to leave. "I could come back. If you want." "You're offering to play for a dying woman again?" Glutton for punishment. But her smile was genuine. "Tomorrow. Same time?" He nodded, surprised by his own eagerness. "I'll be here." As he walked out, the nurse was adjusting Maya's IV. She looked up briefly. "That was beautiful. I haven't seen her that engaged in weeks." Ethan nodded, unsure how to respond. Outside the hospital, snow had begun to fall, delicate flakes dissolving on contact with the pavement. He stood for a moment, letting the cold air fill his lungs, feeling strangely disoriented. Maya's words echoed. "What are you afraid of finding at the end of that melody?" He'd never considered that his inability to finish the song might be deliberate. What was he afraid of? Resolution? Acceptance? Moving forward? For the first time in months, Ethan felt a familiar stirring, the desire to create, to express, to complete something meaningful. As he walked toward the subway, snowflakes catching in his hair, he hummed the melody of Unfinished. But this time, he allowed himself to imagine where it might lead. The following afternoon, Ethan arrived at room 418 to find Maya sitting up in bed, a notebook open on her lap. Her skin had a grayish undertone that hadn't been there yesterday, but her eyes brightened when she saw him. "You actually came back." There was genuine surprise in her voice. "I said I would." He settled into the chair, noticing new medications hanging from her IV pole. "Bad day?" "They're all variations on a theme." She closed the notebook. "But I've been thinking about your song." Ethan raised an eyebrow as he removed his guitar. "You've been analyzing my unfinished work?" "Occupational hazard." Before this, she gestured vaguely at her failing body. "I taught music theory at Juilliard." The revelation startled him. "You're a professor?" "Was. And a composer, though not a famous one." A shadow of something, pride perhaps, or grief, crossed her face. 2 symphonies performed by the New York Philharmonic. A handful of chamber pieces. Nothing that will outlive me by much. Ethan looked at his worn guitar with sudden self-consciousness. "And here I am playing amateur compositions for you. Amateur doesn't mean without value." Maya's voice softened. "Your piece has something many technically superior compositions lack. Honesty." He tuned his guitar, buying time while processing her words. "So, Professor Chen, what's your professional assessment of my unfinished song?" "It's afraid." She said it simply, without judgment. "It approaches emotional resolution, then retreats, like someone reaching for something vital, then convincing themselves they don't really need it." The accuracy of her observation was unnerving. "And what do you think it's reaching for?" "That's not for me to say." Maya adjusted herself against the pillows, wincing slightly. "But I think you know." He did know. The song had emerged from the ruins of not just his career, but his relationship with Sophia. When she left, taking not just her love but her belief in him, something fundamental had broken inside. The melody had poured out, raw and unfiltered, but he'd never been able to conclude it. Ending the song meant accepting the ending of everything else. "Will you play it again?" Maya asked, her voice pulling him back to the present. "I'd like to hear it once more." Ethan positioned his fingers on the strings but hesitated. "Actually, I was thinking of playing something else today. Something happier." "Don't." Her response was immediate and firm. "Don't play what you think a dying woman wants to hear. Play what's real." The directness of her request cut through his hesitation. He began to play unfinished. Again, but this time, he allowed himself to feel every note, every pause, every unresolved phrase. The music filled the sterile hospital room, transforming it into something intimate and sacred. As he played, he noticed Maya's breathing changing, becoming more regular, deeper. Her eyes closed, but her fingers moved slightly against the blanket, as if conducting. When he reached the point where the song usually faded, he found himself continuing, improvising, allowing the melody to search for what came next. A new phrase emerged, tentative at first, then stronger. Not a resolution exactly, but a question asked with more courage. When he finally stopped, the silence felt charged with possibility. Maya opened her eyes. They were brighter somehow, more present. That was different. I tried something new. It's starting to find its way. She smiled, then coughed, a harsh, rattling sound that shook her thin frame. When the spasm passed, she looked exhausted. Sorry. Scenic detour on the one-way journey. Ethan set his guitar aside, reaching instinctively for the water cup on her bedside table. She took it with shaking hands. Thank you. She took a careful sip. Tell me something, Ethan Reed. Why is a musician with your talent playing in hospital rooms instead of proper venues? The question was unexpected. Who says I'm talented? I do, and I've spent my life evaluating musical talent. Her directness left no room for deflection. So what happened? Perhaps it was the knowledge of her impending death that made honesty seem not just possible, but necessary. Or perhaps it was simply that Maya saw through pretense with those perceptive eyes. I almost made it. The words felt strange on his tongue. He'd avoided talking about this for so long. 3 years ago, I had a record deal. Small label, but legitimate. I quit my job, burned bridges. Then the label went bankrupt before my album was released. My girlfriend left, said she couldn't build a life with someone who had unrealistic dreams. And you've been playing hospital gigs ever since. And restaurants, nursing homes, anywhere that pays something. Music became, he searched for the right word, utilitarian. A service I provide, not an art form. Maya nodded slowly. So you stopped believing in the transformative power of music. I stopped believing, period. The admission felt both painful and freeing. In myself, in music, in possibilities. And yet you still play. Every day you still play. It's the only thing I know how to do. No. Maya shook her head with surprising firmness. It's the only thing you can't stop yourself from doing. There's a difference. Before Ethan could respond, a man appeared in the doorway. Tall, with Maya's same dark eyes, but none of her frailty. He carried a briefcase and wore an expensive-looking suit slightly rumpled from the workday. David, Maya's voice warmed with genuine affection. You're early. Meeting canceled. David entered, his gaze shifting to Ethan with obvious curiosity. You must be the musician. Ethan stood, extending his hand. Ethan Reed. David's handshake was firm, assessing. David Chen, Maya's brother and self-appointed entertainment director. His attempt at lightness didn't quite mask the worry in his eyes as he looked at his sister. How are you feeling today? Better after the music. Maya's answer seemed genuine. Ethan plays his own compositions. Really? David's interest seemed to deepen. That's wonderful. Thank you for doing this. Music is everything to Maya. It was my pleasure. Ethan began packing up his guitar, recognizing the conversation was shifting to family matters. Same time tomorrow? Maya's eyes met his, something unspoken passing between them. Please. As Ethan left, he heard David say, You have more color today. And Maya's soft response, It's the music. It wakes something up. Outside, the December evening had turned bitter cold, but Ethan barely noticed. For the first time in years, his mind buzzed with musical phrases, variations, possibilities. That night in his small apartment, he played for hours, working on Unfinished, allowing it to evolve, to speak truth he'd been avoiding. When exhaustion finally claimed him, he slept deeply, dreamlessly, his guitar propped beside his bed like a silent guardian. Days turned into weeks. December marched toward Christmas, the city transforming with lights and decorations that Ethan barely noticed. His world had narrowed to his tiny apartment, the hospital, and room 418. Each afternoon, he played for Maya. Sometimes David was there, or occasionally a nurse, but mostly it was just the two of them, musician and listener, both searching for something through the language of melody. The strange thing was, Maya didn't die. The doctors are puzzled. She told him 3 weeks after their first meeting. Her voice was stronger now, her face less gaunt. The tumors aren't growing as expected. They're talking about stable disease instead of terminal decline. That's good news, right? Ethan felt a surge of something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. It's unexpected news. Maya's pragmatism remained intact. Don't misunderstand, I'm still dying, just not as quickly as predicted. But even as she downplayed the changes, Ethan could see them. Her eyes were clearer, her movements more fluid. She sat up for longer periods, even walked short distances with assistance. The nurses commented on it, exchanging meaningful glances when they thought no one was looking. And unfinished, continued to evolve. Each day, Ethan played it differently, adding phrases, exploring variations, pushing closer to resolution. Maya listened with a composer's ear, occasionally offering suggestions that unlocked new possibilities. You're getting closer, she told him on Christmas Eve. The hospital room was decorated with a small artificial tree and cards from colleagues and students. The melody is finding its courage, like someone else I know. Ethan smiled at her. In the artificial glow of Christmas lights, she looked almost healthy, a deceptive gift of the season. We're both works in progress. She adjusted her position, wincing slightly. Despite improvements, pain remained her constant companion. David thinks you're some kind of miracle worker, you know. What? Ethan's fingers stilled on the guitar strings. He's convinced your music is healing me. Says my whole demeanor changes when you play. She shook her head, amused by her brother's sentimentality. He's always been a romantic. And you're not? I'm a realist with occasional poetic tendencies. Her smile faded. But I will admit, these sessions, they give me something to look forward to. Something beyond blood tests and scan results. Ethan felt an unexpected tightness in his throat. Me too. The admission hung between them, simple, honest, profound. Play something festive, Maya requested, breaking the moment. It's Christmas Eve, after all. Ethan launched into a jazz-inflected version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And Maya closed her eyes, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Neither mentioned that they didn't know how many Christmases remained for her. Some truths didn't require voicing. Later, walking home through light snow, Ethan realized something had shifted inside him. Music no longer felt like a service he provided. It had become communion again, connection, purpose. Each afternoon with Maya restored something he'd thought permanently lost. What he didn't know, couldn't know, was how their musical conversations were affecting her at a level beyond conscious understanding. January arrived with bitter winds and startling news. The latest scans show significant tumor shrinkage. Dr. Patel's voice held cautious optimism as she reviewed Maya's results. Ethan, who had arrived for their usual session, stood awkwardly by the door, wondering if he should leave for this private discussion. How significant? Maya's voice remained measured, practical. 30% reduction overall. It's remarkable. Dr. Patel adjusted her glasses. I've consulted with oncology colleagues. There are documented cases of spontaneous regression in cancer, though extremely rare. And what's the prognosis now? David asked from his position by the window. He'd been coming more frequently, watching his sister's unexpected improvement with hopeful vigilance. It's difficult to say. Dr. Patel's caution remained evident. We'll continue monitoring closely, perhaps try a modified treatment protocol given your improved condition. After the doctor left, a stunned silence filled the room. It was David who broke it. I told you, he said to Maya, his voice thick with emotion. I told you something was happening. Maya looked to Ethan, something unreadable in her expression. Would you mind giving us a few minutes? Family discussion. Of course. Ethan nodded, stepping into the hallway. He leaned against the wall, guitar case at his feet, trying to process what he'd heard. Tumor shrinkage. Improvement. Words that hadn't seemed possible when he first entered room 418 nearly a month ago. When David emerged 15 minutes later, his eyes were red-rimmed, but his expression resolute. She wants to see you, he said, then hesitated. Whatever you're doing, your music, your presence, please don't stop. The naked plea caught Ethan off guard. I won't. Inside, Maya looked both exhilarated and exhausted, the emotional conversation with her brother having drained her limited reserves. So, she said as he settled into his usual chair, apparently I'm defying medical expectations. I heard. Ethan removed his guitar, feeling strangely shy. That's incredible news. It's unexpected news, she corrected, echoing her words from weeks earlier. David is ready to proclaim a miracle. I'm more cautious. That seems reasonable. Maya studied him with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. He thinks it's you, you know. Your music, these daily sessions. The suggestion made Ethan uncomfortable. That's scientifically implausible. She smiled slightly. Of course it is. And yet, she looked out the window at the January sky, gray and heavy with unshed snow. There is research about music's effect on healing, psychological benefits translating to physiological responses, stress reduction, immune function improvement. I'm hardly a music therapist. I'm just a failed musician playing unfinished songs. Are you, though? Her gaze returned to him, challenging. Failed, I mean. The question hung between them. Before he could answer, Maya continued. Play unfinished for me. I want to hear where it stands today. Ethan positioned his fingers on the strings, closed his eyes, and began to play. The melody had evolved significantly over their weeks together. What had started as a tentative, retreating piece now moved with more confidence, still questioning, but less afraid of potential answers. As he played, he felt something unlocking inside, doors long closed beginning to open. When he reached what had once been the ending, he continued, allowing the music to find its natural progression. New phrases emerged, building on previous themes but transforming them, acknowledging pain while refusing to be defined by it. For the first time, the song found its resolution, not in forgetting or denying loss, but in integrating it into something new, something that contained both sorrow and possibility. When the final notes faded, Ethan opened his eyes to find Maya watching him with tears streaming unchecked down her face. It's finished, she whispered. Yes, the realization washed over him. I think it is, and so beautiful. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers. You found it, the ending that was always there, waiting. In that moment, something profound passed between them. Understanding beyond words, connection beyond explanation. Neither spoke of miracles or healing, but both felt the presence of something transcendent in that simple hospital room. Winter reluctantly gave way to spring. Outside Maya's window, trees that had stood skeletal against gray skies now sported tender green buds. Inside, equally improbable transformations continued. The doctors are using words like remission now. Maya's voice held cautious wonder as she walked slowly beside Ethan in the hospital corridor. These short walks had become part of their routine as her strength returned. Not officially, not yet, but they're thinking it. Ethan matched his pace to hers, ready to support her if needed. Hakamimum. How do you feel about that? Confused, grateful, terrified. She laughed softly. I'd made peace with dying. Living again, that requires a different kind of courage. They reached the small solarium at the end of the hall, their destination for these daily excursions. Sunlight streamed through large windows, warming the space despite the lingering chill outside. Have you thought about what comes next? Ethan asked as they settled on a bench. If they discharge you? David wants me to move in with him and Sophie. Maya's expression was complicated. They've already converted their guest room. Very presumptuous of them to assume I'll recover. And very loving, Ethan observed gently. Yes, her admission was soft. But I'm not sure it's what I want. What do you want? The question hung between them. In the months of their acquaintance, they had spoken of death and music and fear and courage, but rarely of future plans. Such conversations had seemed pointless, even cruel. I want to compose again. Maya's voice strengthened with conviction. Whether I have 2 months or 20 years, I want to create music that matters. Ethan nodded, understanding completely. Your third symphony. Yes, she looked out at the budding trees. And I want to hear you perform. In a proper venue, not a hospital room. The statement caught him off guard. I don't perform anymore. Not like that. Why not? Her directness hadn't softened with improving health. You finished your song. You found your voice again. What are you waiting for? The challenge in her question pierced his carefully constructed defenses. What was he waiting for? The safety of hospital rooms, in appreciative but undemanding audiences, had become a hiding place. The thought of performing his music, his true music, not background melodies for distracted diners, filled him with both longing and terror. I don't know if I can, he admitted. Of course you can. Maya's certainty was unwavering. You do it every day for me. That's different. He struggled to articulate the distinction. Special? Her eyebrow arched teasingly. The woman you allegedly healed with your magical musical powers? You know I don't believe that. Don't you? Her expression turned serious. Something happened in that room, Ethan. Something neither of us can fully explain. My medical team certainly can't. Call it coincidence, call it mind-body connection, call it whatever you need to, but don't diminish it. He couldn't argue with her logic. Whatever had transpired between musician and listener over those winter months defied simple explanation. Maya's improvement coincided precisely with their musical sessions. Her best days invariably followed his most emotionally connected performances. "I've booked a venue," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. "The Maple Room. It's small, intimate, perfect for your debut, or rather your return." "You what?" Ethan stared at her, disbelieving. "Without asking me? Would you have agreed if I'd asked?" Her knowing smile indicated she already knew the answer. "That's not the point. No, the point is that you're ready, whether you recognize it or not." Maya reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his. 3 weeks from now. By then I'll likely be discharged. It can be a celebration of your music, of my unexpected second chance. Ethan looked down at their joined hands, feeling simultaneously trapped and liberated by her unwavering belief in him. "And if I say no, you won't." Her confidence was maddening and inspiring in equal measure. "You can't hide in hospital rooms forever, Ethan Reed." She was right, of course. The musician who had entered room 418 months ago, bitter, defeated, going through motions, was not the same man sitting beside her now. Something had awakened, not just in Maya but in him as well. "One condition," he said finally. "You'll be there. Wild horses couldn't keep me away." Her smile lit her entire face, years of illness momentarily erased. "I've arranged for a piano to be available too." "Why a piano?" "Because," Maya said, squeezing his hand, "I thought we might perform together. Your finished piece, arranged for guitar and piano. A duet." The suggestion rendered him momentarily speechless. The idea of performing with Maya, composer, professor, the woman whose life had somehow become intertwined with his own, was both terrifying and exhilarating. "You haven't even heard me play it on piano," he protested weakly. "I don't need to. I've been composing the piano part in my head for weeks." She tapped her temple. "Some benefits to being confined to a hospital bed. Plenty of time to think." Looking at her, fragile yet determined, facing an uncertain future with more courage than he'd shown facing rejection, how could he refuse? "Okay," he agreed finally. "A duet." Her smile was worth every moment of fear the commitment stirred in him. The Maple Room was indeed intimate. Perhaps 80 seats arranged in a semicircle around a small stage. 3 weeks after their conversation in the solarium, it was filled to capacity with an eclectic audience. Hospital staff who had cared for Maya, her former students and colleagues, David and his wife, and music lovers drawn by the intriguing story of a composer's unexpected recovery and a struggling musician's return to performance. Backstage, Ethan paced nervously, guitar in hand. Maya sat calmly at a small table, reviewing their handwritten score. Her discharge from the hospital had come just 1 week earlier, a medical milestone celebrated with cautious optimism. She still tired easily, still required regular monitoring, but she moved through the world with renewed purpose. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor?" she observed without looking up. 3 years. Ethan's voice was tight. "It's been 3 years since I performed for a real audience. And you're better now than you were then." She finally looked up, her gaze steady. "You've lived more, suffered more, understood more." Before he could respond, a stagehand appeared. 5 minutes. Maya stood, smoothing the simple black dress she wore. In the dim backstage lighting, with her hair arranged elegantly and color in her cheeks, no one would guess she had been at death's door just months earlier. "Ready?" she asked, extending her hand. Ethan took it, drawing strength from her certainty. "As I'll ever be." They walked onto the stage together, greeted by warm applause. The spotlight felt both familiar and strange after so long, exposing, revealing, demanding truth. Maya settled at the piano while Ethan took his position on a stool beside her. They had rehearsed extensively over the past weeks, Maya's strength increasing daily as she reconnected with her instrument. The piece they had created together, his melody, her harmonies, their shared emotional journey, had evolved into something neither could have created alone. Ethan leaned toward the microphone. "Thank you all for coming tonight. This piece is called Unfinished, or at least it was." A ripple of appreciative laughter moved through the audience. "Now I think of it as continuation." He nodded to Maya, who began with a delicate piano introduction, notes falling like the first hesitant drops of rain before a cleansing storm. When Ethan joined with his guitar, the melody emerged fully formed, confident in its vulnerability. As they played, the story unfolded without words. Loss, retreat, isolation giving way to tentative connection, to possibility, to healing. Maya's piano and Ethan's guitar conversed, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in counterpoint, always in deep understanding. In the front row, David Chen watched with tears streaming openly down his face. One hand clasped tightly in his wife's, the other pressed against his heart. Hospital staff who had witnessed Maya's remarkable journey exchanged knowing glances. Something transcendent was happening. Something beyond medical explanation, beyond coincidence, beyond ordinary understanding. The piece built toward its resolution, not a simple happy ending, but a complex textured acceptance that contained both sorrow and joy, both ending and beginning. When the final notes faded, silence held the room for several heartbeats before applause erupted. Standing, thunderous, affirming. Ethan looked at Maya, finding her eyes already on him, bright with unshed tears and something else. Recognition of the distance they had traveled together. Without words, they had told the truth of their journey, had made meaning from mystery, had transformed private pain into shared beauty. As they took their bows, Ethan felt something settle inside him. Not completion, but continuation. The story wasn't over. The melody would keep evolving. For both of them, against all odds, there would be new compositions, new possibilities. Outside the venue later that night, snow began to fall, gentle, transformative, making everything new. Maya tilted her face upward, letting flakes melt against her skin. "It feels like a benediction," she said softly. Ethan nodded, understanding perfectly. Whatever miraculous or ordinary forces had brought them to this moment, music, medicine, human connection, sheer stubborn persistence, they had been granted continuation when ending seemed certain. "What comes next?" he asked, the question no longer frightening. Maya's smile contained all the wisdom of someone who had stared into eternity and returned with deeper appreciation for each moment. "We keep playing. We keep composing. We keep living." She extended her hand. "Together." Ethan took it, feeling the strength in her fingers, the pulse of life beneath her skin. Together. Around them, snow continued to fall, covering the city in possibility, while inside the maple room, the echoes of their music, once unfinished, now continuing, lingered like a promise.